Want me to call out for someone?
Young.
Who do you want me to go for?
What's your name?
Ursäkta.
Yeah. Är det bänkar?
No, grab me a picture. I can't help it. They're the press, so they
gotta wait.
I think the press is more important than
They have to wait.
Du vet.
No, to me, the press is more important than the people that sign.
We are patient, so if you need to.
Don't worry about it. I'm not gonna worry about it. They can come back later.
Of course not.
All right.
Let's try and get started. We can edit this. This is a
You can
relaxed.
edit.
Yeah.
Yeah, just let me talk.
Yeah, you're the star, man.
Well, I know what you want. Now, you want me to be talking to you or to the camera?
To us.
Just. So we're here from Superior TV with a legend in the business, a guy that we probably associate in Sweden anyway with American custom cars, and that's usually what we see here at Elmia Expo. But actually, George Barris has done a lot of movie cars. He's been involved with movie cars that have influenced guys that were born in the 80s, guys like me, guys like Pierre. So
Not just movie cars, but important movie cars like the Batmobile and the Green Hornet, cars that have been with us since they were built until now. They are still actual.
we can still put on the DVD and we just love it. So that never changes. But we'll let George talk about himself and just tell us, how do you get involved in Hollywood? What was your first job? Who contacted you?
Well, I want to thank you for having me, and I'm sure that many people in the press and in the venues will enjoy some of the things that I have to tell you. But actually, I started out when I was about 16 years old to build custom cars. From there, I went into doing the legends of the 50s, like that Mercury that we have here, these cars. That's all from the 50s. From that led into what I used to do in the older days. I was an illegal street dragger. That means I raced my little hot rod up and down the streets, and the cops would chase us. We're in the middle of an interview. Do you mind?
It's cool.
I says we're in the middle of an interview.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Let's start over.
No problem. We don't have to start over. We'll edit it.
You were a legal street racer. We didn't know that.
I'm sort of seeing the reference here from making
let
the
me,
Fast and the Furious a few years later. But yeah, continue to tell us.
So coming from being an illegal street dragger, that means the movie industry was very interested in what we were doing because we were exciting, we were dramatic.
Okay, so
and
they wasn't against it.
Yes, very much so they were against it. They were against it in the form of being not only illegal but dangerous. Yes, we were street dragging. Yes, they would shoot at us. Yes.
Oh, holy crap.
But finally, after a period of years, it was organized where the Peterson Group put us into where we would drag street in airports and different things.
Of course, getting organized.
May I just ask, what kind of car did you drive?
I had a 32 Ford, a very hot little high boy, and we would dramatically go up the Sepulveda Highway. We'd all get out and race. But when you raced in those days, you raced for pink slips.
Yeah.
If you lost, you lost your car.
You lost your car, yes.
So, but it was so dramatic. 2 miles up, the two guys would be dragging. We'd be all out there with cars across the lights across, and everybody would be dancing.
Just like in the movies.
You're kidding me, for 2 miles? Like a real road race?
Very much strongly. They would come dragging up the road, but on the other side of the hill, where we were dragging, would be 6 sets of red lights.
Yes,
that means the cops were coming up this way, we're racing this way. Everybody that was watching the race was trying to get out of there. So can you imagine a street dragger at 100 miles an hour trying to get around? So it was and that's why the movie industry loved it.
Okay.
So you mean to tell us that
you were living in a movie more or less?
Well, we led and put the dramatics in the movie, and that's why it became so important.
And tough guys that come with the Fast and the Furious movies and think that this is street racing, they don't know.
American Graffiti, if you have
yes, of course.
Lucas Films, it was the same way. Yes, we would be in the drive-in. Yes, the police would come in to catch us.
A stunt driver in the movies.
We would have that too, but we would have it where the We'd be in a drive-in. The police try to catch us. We would put a chain around their rear end and chain it right to the light pole.
can't believe
We'd
this.
take out, and the police would try to catch us, and of course it would pull the whole rear end of the car. And that would be. But yes, we would do many things that the police didn't like. But we had a strong rule on our groups that played or did the thing. We didn't smoke, we didn't drink, and we hated drugs.
Same as us.
Yeah.
Same as us.
But we had two bad habits, and that is cars and girls.
Girls always.
Same as us.
Yeah.
Well, that led
That
to
never gets old.
that was really the start from the movie industry that had me. My first one was called High School Confidential at MGM with John Barrymore Jr., where I had a 48 Ford Chevy that I had to take and race, go around a corner, and turn it over.
With you in the car, no?
And we were in the car, but the car was so low that it wouldn't roll over. And so we had to take it and put it up on a hoist and drop it down because it was just too low to run over, see.
This was before CGI effects
That
and
was
everything.
before
You
many
had
of the
to do
stunts
it.
were put onto different wavelengths. So that was how we started. But then came the 60s. Now, you know, in the 50s, it was a big movie screen and everybody was able to look at us in the movie theaters. But the 60s came TV. Now we're in every household in the world. And that started out with Beverly Hillbillies.
Yes.
Then came the Munsters. Then came Batman. Then came the Monkees. Then came the Green Hornet and the Knight Rider and the Dukes of Hazzard. And all of these things were
So
escalated.
people at home could see you week after week after week.
And on TV as well as the movies came out. The Car, and which was a car that was indestructible, and of course the Fast and Furious cars came way later,
Yes.
which was actually a period of time of bringing cars, foreign cars, into the American marketplace.
So breaking it down a bit, and you say we're getting way ahead of ourselves, and that your resume is just.
We didn't expect this, not at
No,
all.
and now it's like you could have written the script for Fast and the Furious, but I mean 30, 40 years ago, and it would have been so much better than the actual movie with all the effects
Actually,
and everything.
they picked up many of our traits, and the writers would add different visions of what they had.
Yes.
And
I
of
get
course,
that
the
vibe,
American
yeah.
Graffiti was the same thing. We were street racing, and in the period of time that we were there. So-
Did your gang have a name?
We
Your
were
crew.
We were called the Customs of Los Angeles,
The Customs
which
of Los
grew to become the Customs of America.
All right.
Because we engulfed the whole United States
yes.
with all of our different traits in our custom cars.
Did your not to say celebrity, but did your boom was it very fast and big? Did you think what is happening to my life?
How can
from
someone-
from being a
Surreal.
legal street racer into a movie guy?
Yeah, and national TV showed.
Well, it excited us because now we're able to give a story to every person in a household in the world. That means they could see we were dramatic young kids, but we did have a rule. We did run our cars. We did
Danny.
learn a lot. We did lead the world. And even in the 60s, when Motortrend said, I changed the face of Detroit because the cars I was designing and building really engulfed the car
Inspired
manufacturer to
the
follow
real.
us.
Yes, I've noticed that it's inspired the real manufacturing of cars.
Yes.
Did you prevent the future of the car making in somehow? Did some of your cars, your older cars, did you have a sight of the future that the car will be, they will look like this or look like that?
Well, like I said, when Motortrend said I changed the face of Detroit, I mean, what I was customizing in the 50s and the 60s
They were making in
were
production.
they were making into the production car. That means Lee, that's why I changed the face of Detroit, the manufacturer. So what I did, the headlights and taillights and top chopping, they would follow through on there. Even to today, your years of 2000, you'll notice that the different cars, the tops are low, the bodies are stretched out, the front ends are very weak and cute, rather than be a big massive piece of chrome.
Did you get any real credit for that?
Well, yes, we did a lot with the Detroit manufacturers. Ford Motor Company had us with what we call the Ford Custom Car Caravan. We traveled all over the United States and Canada. And General Motors, I worked with Mitchell and Chuck Jordan. I did many of their cars. They wanted what we call concept cars. That was idea cars.
Yes.
And that's how we got the Batmobile. Was really the start of a Ford concept car. It was a Lincoln Futura. So I took the concept car and
with
made
the
it
with the
into-
glass. Yes, yes,
Glass,
the original
I know which
Batmobile.
car.
Yeah, glass on the top and everything. And that's how we did many of the cars, because Detroit or the manufacturer was able to participate with what we were able to start with.
And they basically wanted something that was way ahead of its time, like something they could draw influence from and eventually put it sort of in production.
Well, we were part of the public. I mean, we were.
You were the
people
people.
remembered and seen us because we were like them. The manufacturer was like big office people, and they were up in the tower, and they didn't get together with people down here that were driving on the
grassroots.
streets and wanted to have.
How was your? Did you have a strict budget, or did you just pour money on you and build whatever you want?
Well, we had a budget, very much so. Of course, the very first car we did for Detroit, until we learned what happened, they wanted a Mercury Marauder made for one of their shows. So I chopped the top and lowered it and made pistol grip steering and a different headrest and things like that. When I handed them their first bill, they came to Hollywood and I gave them their first bill, and he looked at the bill and he looked at me and I said, "Oh, my first job with Ford Motor Company, I charged them too much money." They looked,
This
"You
is
saved
nothing."
us $1 million. That's the difference of what they would
And
pay
back then,
to have a
$1
car
million.
sent over to Italy and made. It'll take them 3 or 4 years to do,
Yes, yes,
and it
yes.
may be $1 million. They came to California. We did a car in 5 weeks and for a few $100s.
Few $100s.
So we learned that to do it, but it was worth it because then they gave us a lot of work. I took their Ford little coupe, push a button, and made it 2-door station wagon. I did their Ford Bronco, which is the off-road car.
Yeah,
I did
the
all
big
of the
rigs,
different
SUV.
cars that we did. In the same way with General Motors, I created the first candy apple paint. That was for Chuck Jordan in the 50s.
On what car was that?
That was just the create. They came to me
Okay,
and
okay, so
wanted
you just
candy
made-
apple
made-
paint. It wasn't a car. It was for manufacturing.
All right.
In the same way with Pearl, all the Pearl colors I created came from. I went to the fish market. I turned the sardines upside down.
All
I
right.
scraped the belly of it, put it in a jar, came back to my shop, put it into clear lacquer,
I want this.
based the car with white, painted it with a pearl. So that was pearl because fish scales were very pearly. So that's how I learned to create that. And then the paint company like DuPont and BBG learned, and then I would license them to make my formulas.
I'm very ashamed of telling this, but I have no idea about this before.
Well, that's because, you know, I'm in the United States and you're here, so you
But
don't get to
still-
hear what we call behind the scenes of learning
Yeah, of course.
many of these different things that we created for the automobile industry and as well as the movie industry.
I have another question that doesn't have to do with this at all, but when did you stop street racing?
When did I stop?
Did you ever stop?
Yeah, I stopped in 1955
Okay.
because Pete Peterson organized us to go out to an airstrip and race legally
Legally, yes.
and, of course, not be so dangerous.
Yes, yes.
And then we were able to teach the motor car companies what we could do with power. And then manufacturing companies like Edelbrock and all those would come in and make the parts that could be sold to other people. So then we started the trend of customizing.
Tuning and also tuning more or less.
Well, the movie industry then really took over at leaps and bounds because the TV, from going into the Beverly Hillbillies, which was very interesting. When they came to me to do the Beverly Hillbillies, it was a very rich family that discovered oil way back in the East. They come
they
into
moved into
Beverly
Beverly
Hillbillies,
Hills.
and in Beverly Hillbillies, the producer said, "Well, I want a jalopy." I said, "I'm not going to find a jalopy. A jalopy is a piece of an old wrecked car with fenders and
All right,
dented
yeah.
fenders." That was Beverly Hillbillies, who was wealthy, but they drove an old jalopy. Now I had to find a jalopy in Beverly Hills, which is impossible. So I'm driving down the freeway over in Riverside, and I seen a feed store. A feed store is where they have hay.
All right,
making
yeah,
that.
yeah.
So I went over there, and there was an old 1922 Oldsmobile sitting there, and it was a sedan. He cut the back off of it, and he hauled his hay all around in the back of his car. So I said, I photographed that, and I went back to my producers and said, here's a jalopy in Beverly Hills. Well, they loved it. But we had one thing we had to do. He said, you know, one thing you got to do, we got to put a rocking chair for old granny.
For old granny up, yeah, I know.
And the same way with the Munsters. When we came back with the Munsters, I went to the studios. They had an old hearse there. I looked at that script and I said, well, you got to have something nice. So I run home with my wife. We photographed a 1925 Model T, and we cut it in 3 sections. So now I got a 6-door Model T Ford that I made into the
limousine.
And then the same way with that came out with the not only the Munsters but also the Batman.
Yep.
When I went to Dozier, our producer, I looked at the script and it says pow, bang, in the script. Well, every time that happened, when we had pow, my Batmobile would shoot out rockets, and bang, we have oil squirters or nail shredders. We had anti-theft control. We did all of these different things immediately for the script, so that it made it exciting, and I made the car become a star.
Yes.
Now here we are today.
Definitely.
Motor Trend magazine went out and they run a vote all over the world, which is the most popular car. And here we are, even this day, Batmobile is #1.
The original one.
That's because it's like Adam West and Burt Ward and all of our Batman and Robins. It's a star because it performed.
Yeah. And you built the Batmobile using 15 days, right?
We had it 15 days, and that was the difference with many of the things you had to do. Time was what we had to fit in with them. It isn't what we were allowed to do. See?
All right.
Now here we are.
But you were still satisfied with.
Oh yes. It isn't whether you're still satisfied. You had to satisfy.
Okay.
It isn't still, or whether they would like something, or when you would like something, you would make it happen. If there was, my motto is, if there was a will, there was a way to do it.
Wow, that's crazy, because that's actually a saying I use a lot as well, and a lot of even tuning studios in Japan use. Maybe they took it from George Barris was the guy who made the original.
We did original Speed Racers, which originated in Japan.
Did you ever took any of the cars, the Green Hornet cars, Batmobile, out for personal ride?
Yeah,
maybe
girls
a
or
street
something.
race or something.
We raced on weekends at NHRA, which we call a racing in a drag strip. We would race a Batmobile against a Green Hornet.
No,
no, that would be legendary, but not for pink slips.
Which were
that
fastest?
was for demonstrations, but we would race. The Batmobile would do 122 miles an hour in a quarter of a mile.
That's impressive.
So we did have speed cars, and we were able to do a lot of that. Then the Munsters, I had the Munster Coach, which was the Model T. Then I made a Dragula for the Vampire, which was a real casket.
Yes.
In making this, I could make a casket, but I wanted to get a real one. So I went to the mortuary and I said, I want to buy that casket. And he says, where's the deceased? Where's the dead body? I says, we're not going to have a dead body. We're going to make a car out of it. He wouldn't sell it to me. So I then went to another mortuary. I said, I want to buy that casket. He said, what are you going to do with it?
Did he say like a blasphemy or something?
Yeah, I said, I was going to make a car for TV. He says, I hate TV. I won't sell it to you. So I went to the third mortuary. I said, I'm determined to get a real casket. So I went and pulled the mortuary guy over to the side. I put some $100 bills in an envelope. My 2 guys picked up the casket, and we literally went out the door. We had to steal it. So the more of the story, a lot of the things aren't as easy as you think, but if you're determined to do something, you can get it done.
Or George Washington can help you as well.
Yeah, that was very good. And well, that's even happening today. I mean, in the movie industry, the Fast and Furious product placement, we use a lot of the motor car companies, like the Knight Rider from Dukes of Hazzard. We did the first one in the Pontiac, it was a talking car.
Yes, yes.
Now the Beverly Hill, the Knight Rider now uses a Mustang, and it doesn't talk, but it's not the same. So that's why it only lasted a year, but our real original Knight Rider lasted 6-7 years.
Yes. Were you involved with the making of the new Green Hornet car?
The new Green Hornet car was based off of the car that I originated.
Yes.
But the new one, it was more animated. That means the car was hit, the car was turning, cut in half, and it wasn't real.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to get that much involved. So you can use my original car, my original design, but when you make the fictitious moves, that means I won't.
That's
have
nothing
to.
for me. Yes.
George, getting back to since we make a living out of Japanese sports cars. We've been importing them from Japan to Sweden with all the aftermarket and all the media hype around it, and a community for young guys who want performance cars. You basically started, you were involved in a lot of that. So when they
I'm using your terminology of what you're talking about and what we have done in the years 2000 on it. I've pioneered the 50s. Now I'm pioneering the 2000 years. The first one was a GTO Pontiac. I made it into a two-door hot rod roadster with vertical doors. Then I took a Magnum station wagon, put 4 vertical doors on it, and I opened it up the whole top. And then I had a challenge. New York Times came to me and they said, "What do you think of the new Toyota Prius, which is
the hybrid car?"
I said, "Well, it looks real good because when I did a TV show about 3 or 4 years ago, it's called the Ninja Turtle. Your car looks like a turtle. It's ugly." So they said, "Okay, what would you do?" I said, "There's a lot you would do." So they gave me $10,000 in 9 days. The challenge was the money wasn't worth it, but the time, 9 days with it. But it was a good challenge, and that's what I did. I lowered the roof line without chopping it. I resculptured the front end. I opened up the wheel wells and put 18-inch wheels on it, and then I put 4 vertical doors on it. And I painted it, in our terminology, when you have a hybrid, you drive it green. So we painted the green. So I created the very first hybrid car, which is
a custom,
and having the vertical doors and all this. Not a lot of power, but we visually made it look pretty good. Brad Pitt's got one, DiCaprio's got one. Many of the celebrities now. The Prius is the #1 car in the United States.
Yeah, so celebrities, now we're starting to get in there. We found on your resume that you built a car for Elvis and one
Frank Sinatra.
Yeah, Pierre's favorite.
Well, to start off, let's say this. There was a young man that I was building a limousine for. He came into my plant, and I have 20 guys that work for me, 20 men. He would go to every man and say, "Tubbs, how do you feel today? I heard you were sick last week." Then he goes to my other man, "Mr. Tony, how's your 14?"
And he was just a customer.
He was a customer. The man came in, it was his car in there, and he was having what we call an inspection. When he went to look at it, but he talked to all of my men and called them sir. And that young man was Elvis Presley. That shows you the kind of person. And then we went on to the many other different celebrities. John Travolta, Farrah Fawcett, the many other celebrities. Bob Hope, we made a sculpture of his face. Bing Crosby, all of the different celebrities.
What did Bing Crosby get?
Bing Crosby, they both loved to golf. That was Bob Hope and Bing Crosby. They drove golf carts, little carts. Then I had this hat on and they had a pipe that smoked. Bob Hope's had a big ski jump.
On their golf cars.
On their golf cars. But then you have other celebrities. The most fun pack was the Rat Pack.
The Rat Pack.
Rat Pack. Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, Elvis Presley.
Icons.
Well, Frank Sinatra, I built them dual gears. Now Frank comes into my shop one morning, he taps me and says, "George, I want you to black out all the windows because I don't like people looking at me when I'm driving to the studio." Now if Frank Sinatra, I said, "But Frank, if Frank Sinatra says black out your windows, you'll black out the windows." Next morning he comes in, taps me on the shoulder. "George, hey Frank, how you doing?" He said, "You know, you're right. I couldn't see it. Nothing last night." Of course, he used a different word, see, but that gives you a different idea.
Is there any celebrity that have requested something really odd?
Well, they were all different. Everyone had it. Now, Michael Jackson come in.
Oh.
He brought in a Rolls Royce.
The golden one?
No, he brought a black Cornish supercharged, and he brought that in, and he said, "George, my car's been hurt." That's the way he would talk. I said, "Don't worry about it." Michael was there, and Jermaine was there, Jackie was there, they all were there. I said, "Don't worry about it, I know how to take care of it." That means when his car is hurt, he's got a little scratch or a little nick. That means his car is hurt. It really wasn't hurt.
So you really liked the car?
Oh, you love the car, but being hurt means a little scratch, a little nick. So he disappears. 2 hours later, he comes back. He went to the drugstore, and he got white Band-Aids, He went over the whole car, and everywhere there was a little scratch, he put a white Band-Aid. So that means his car was hurt. So that gives you another example.
Yeah.
Then another man was John Wayne,
Yes.
who was the Duke.
Yeah.
He was really
Cowboy.
tremendous, but he was a big man. And he said, George, I don't want to have to stoop over to get in my motor car. He says, because I want to slide right in. That's okay. So I raised the roof 6 inches, and I raised the door opening.
6 inches.
So when he opened the doors, immediately he said, oh, George, I can slide in my motor car now. So you can see every celebrity had some unusual way that they would enjoy their life or their motor car.
All right, George, we'll try and round this up. We'll do a quick pitch and you'll just say a few quotes about that car, because this is our favorite list. So, first of all, the Back to the Future car, Michael J. Fox.
Well, the Back to the Future car was made by, of course, the DeLorean, and that was kind of like a future car. And that's the reason why they used it, because it was a car made out of plastic and metal and that, so that made it a lot of difference. That's why they used that car from Universal. And many other cars that were used in the film industry, they used a different type of car, whether it was a product from overseas or an American car.
Yes.
So, next car, the Ghostbuster Ecto 1. Just sign it, it's okay.
Sign it real quick. Lassie's really mad about this.
Well, then he shouldn't have the press come in.
No, they have to wait.
Well,
We could wait, but there was about
Lassie,
George,
do you want me to have the press wait, or you want me to take care of it? I'll do whatever you want to do. Then you guys will have to wait.
Yes. We're actually done, Barry.
We can round it up.
Really satisfied.
Okay.
Really satisfied. Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot.
Som ni såg så blev vi tyvärr avbrutna av de som har hand om det här. Vi hade kunnat fortsätta med detta i en evighet.
Ja,
så otroligt mycket jag inte kände till.
Alltså sjuk gubbe, alltså sorry, inte sjuk i det allra mest positiva bemärkelsen.
Så
Vilken
mycket
lirare.
han har varit involverad i, alltså. Det här är färger, bilar, konceptbilar.
Street racing och allting. Han kunde ha skrivit
Filmstuntförare, helt otroligt. Vi hade ingen aning om detta.
så
Det
mycket
skäms jag lite
kändisar
över,
också.
faktiskt.
Alltså, vi försökte verkligen att leta upp innan. Vi la ner ganska mycket tid på det, men
Han skötte det så galant. En mycket trevlig herre. Han skötte det så perfekt, alltså.
ja.
Lite synd att vi inte fick fortsätta, men det var nästan bra, för att annars hade vi suttit där hela dagen, alltså.
Jag kunde suttit hela helgen. Han hade ju bara story på story på story och berättat hela
Träffat
tiden.
alla de stora i Hollywood, precis allting, alltså. Helt otroligt.
Det var lite synd att vi fick prata mer om Fast and Furious, eftersom att det är lite honom indirekt vi kan tacka för att vi står här. Han har varit inblandad och så,
Men vi är jättenöjda. Vi hoppas att detta på något sätt, att ni också märker detta, att ni fick ut någonting av detta. Vi hann snacka med honom lite innan vi började filma, och vi är helt amazed.
Ja,
helt
och
amazed.
vi avslutar med att tacka Lasse Theander, mässgeneral på Elmia och Bilsport.
Att vi
tack.
fick tiden.
Tack.
Tack.
Och tack.